Don't forget to check out and grab your copy of our two newly released books, Football, a Love Story, and What Did Football Teach Me? These books feature over 100 stories from current and former coaches, players, executives, and entertainers from across the football landscape, describing what got them involved in the game, what they love about it, and what life lessons the game taught them. You can find your copy or order your copy from our website at footballgameplan.com/books. Let's get things kicked off with some keys to victory for both teams in this ball game. Starting with the Oakland Raiders, I would test the depth of the Saints secondary. I believe the Saints are thin on the back end at the nickel and dime position. So if you go with 3 or sometimes 4 wide receiver sets, I think you can exploit those matchups back there in the secondary. Also, speaking of the secondary, the Raiders secondary has to keep their eyes on their own luggage. What that means is don't get caught up with looking in the backfield, focusing on Drew Brees, because that play-action passing game of New Orleans can hurt you in an instant. And third, make plays that are there to be made. That's on both the offensive side and the defensive side. Offensively speaking, when you see busted coverages, when you see a guy that's out of position or the Saints are beat by alignment pre-snap, take full advantage and make those plays. Defensively, Drew Brees will give you 2 to 3 passes a game where you can pick off and get the ball back to your offense. So you have to be sure to come away with those turnovers and make the plays that are there to be made. Moving over to the Saints in this ball game, balance saves lives. You look at the Saints offense and you instantly think it's a passing offense. Well, you're right, because the Saints primarily pass the football, but they do have talent and depth in the backfield. You look at Mark Ingram, C.J. Spiller. They bring in John Kuhn, the longtime fullback from the Green Bay Packers. So they have the personnel to be successful running the football, and if they can provide that balance, they'll be very tough to beat. Also, you want to let the creators create on their own. Don't get overly creative offensively by trying to create ways to get these guys the football. Guys like Brandon Cooks, Michael Thomas, C.J. Spiller, they can create opportunities on their own, so you don't have to do anything particularly creative to make that happen. And finally, I believe the Saints have to stay active up front defensively. When you look at that defensive line, there's a lot of talent. They bring in Paul Kruger from the Cleveland Browns. They also have Cameron Jordan. You also look at Tyler Davison and Nick Fairley. Staying active defensively up front while getting in the face of Derek Carr, and that passing in those passing windows allows you the opportunity to tip passes at the line of scrimmage, which could either fall incomplete or, better yet, in the hands of a waiting defender. He tends to flatline passes, so there are going to be plenty of opportunities in this ball game to knock balls down at the line of scrimmage. This week versus the New Orleans Saints is going to be important for this Oakland Raiders passing game, or receivers perhaps, to make the Saints communicate back there in the secondary, be able to pass guys off. I think they have 2 unique talents in Michael Crabtree and also the second-year player Amari Cooper to be able to get things done. Again, the Saints will be starting Delvin Breaux, who's a little handsy in coverage, and also a young player, first-time player in P.J. Williams at quarterback. So I think they have an outstanding chance to do so. You see, we have Michael Crabtree and also Amari Cooper staggered on the line of scrimmage in a bunch set. I like Michael Rivera. I think he's a very active fullback, a guy that's a pseudo tight end receiver. So I put him in the backfield in this situation along with another tight end. So what we're going to do, we're going to motion him over to show we're going to run the football, and he's going to leak out into the flat. So he's your safety valve if you're Derek Carr. He's the guy that you want to dump the football out to if no one is open. But what you're going to ask Crabtree to do is push up, and he's going to the post, while you're going to have Cooper push up and go into the corner. Now, this is why it gets tricky for the Saints secondary. You're going to ask either Delvin Breaux or P.J. Williams to effectively pass guys off and communicate. Have a little play fake here. So that's going to hold the safety in some of these backers. And what that essentially does is create a one-on-one matchup. Now, if you're the Raiders, you can trust Crabtree or Cooper to make something happen one-on-one versus the Saints cornerback. So if they're going to win this ball game, it's going to have to be with their passing game. I think they have the personnel, even with just 2 wide receivers, to cause a lot of problems for that Saints secondary. It's going to be important for the New Orleans Saints to generate pressure versus Carr in that passing game. If they can generate pressure, they can generate a turnover. I'm going to show you how they can go about doing so. Cloud coverage here. We have the strong safety right here in the alley. And what we're going to do is a little bit creative. We're going to try to tilt this nose tackle, which would be Tyler Davidson, who's very strong at the point of attack. We're going to have him tilted going across face of this center. And what we're going to do is try to get Derek Carr to throw into a trap defense. So he sees the corner off pre-snap. It looks like cover 2. But what we're going to do is really be in cover 3 with the strong safety playing his deep third. Free safety dropping back into a deep third. Cornerback playing deep third. So backside, we're going to have this linebacker cover his curl out responsibility. Going to have this backer here drop into his hook to curl zone. Backer here is going to his hook to curl zone. Why? Because we have this cornerback going into out. So he's going to show like he's pressing, and as the receiver works up, he's working up, but really he's playing right here. He has out responsibility. So if they try to run something quick, you're bracketing this tight end or this in breaking route. So this is where you want to get Carr to throw into a trap defense. So he has an out. He has hook to curl, curl out. Now how we're going to get pressure? We're going to have Paul Kruger, newly signed Paul Kruger, crash inside shoulder here. We're going to have Tyler Davidson work back across that center, crash this A-gap. Nick Fairley, another newly signed New Orleans Saints, going back around to get pressure on the outside, and this defensive end here, which is your Cameron Jordan, just pushing up the field. So you're going to get weak side pressure. You're going to try to get Carr to throw into a trap defense, well protected on the backside, deep third, cloud coverage on this side right here. So this is how the Saints, I believe, can find ways to generate pressure in hopes of forcing Carr into a bad decision, which will get the ball back to that Saints offense in Drew Brees.
I believe the biggest X factor for the Raiders in this game will be the running back Latavius Murray and how well he can do versus the Saints defense. If he's able to have some success, it really balances out their offense. I know the Raiders want to get back there and feature Derek Carr and those excellent receivers and tight ends that they have, but they really have to get that ground game going if they want to beat New Orleans. The biggest X factor to me in this ball game for New Orleans is the play of their offensive line. I think this is an area of concern entering the season. They do bring back Jairi Evans, and he's going to start week 1. And here's a guy that you wonder about the continuity with the rest of the offensive linemen. They move Andres Pete again across the offensive front, trying to find the right place for him to fit. And you also wonder about the depth all along the offensive line. So those are some questions I have about the Saints offensive front, and that is not what you want to hear when you're facing a Raiders defensive line and a defensive front seven, quite honestly, that's very active, athletic, and has the strength to collapse the pocket. I like the Saints in this ball game. This will be a fun game to watch. The reason being is that both teams will come out and try to feature their quarterbacks in their passing game. At some point, they'll realize, hey, we have to run the football, and I think you have to side with the depth and talent of the Saints backfield. I do think they'll slow the pace down, slow the game down with their ground attack, and it'll be the reason why they knock off the Raiders.